I have been awake for almost 60 hours now, and I know I am not going to last much longer. But I am more afraid of falling asleep than I have ever been of anything in my entire life, because every single time I close my eyes, something is waiting for me on the other side. And 3 nights ago it killed my dog. My name doesn't matter. What matters is what happened and what is still happening. I have struggled with insomnia for most of my adult life, and along with it comes something most people have never heard of. Something called hypnopompic hallucination. It happens in that thin sliver of time when you are waking up, but your brain has not quite caught up with your body yet. For me, it has always been spiders. Dozens of them, crawling across the ceiling, dropping from invisible threads above my bed, skittering along the walls in the dark. The first few times it happened, I screamed and grabbed a shoe and beat at the walls until my hands ached, searching every corner of the room, refusing to believe they weren't real, even after every light in the house was on. Eventually, I learned to live with it. I would wake up, see the spiders, remind myself they were not real, and wait for my mind to catch up with reality. It still terrified me every time, but I got faster at calming down. That was before the sleep paralysis started. If you have never experienced sleep paralysis, I don't know how to fully explain it. You are awake. You are aware. Your eyes might even be open, and you cannot move a single muscle in your body. You are a passenger locked inside your own skin while your mind screams at a body that refuses to listen. Now imagine that happening at the exact same moment the spiders appear, crawling toward your face, dangling directly above your open, unblinking eyes. And you cannot do anything but watch and wait for it to end. My husband, Caleb, has become an expert at talking me down from these episodes. Usually it means waking him up in the middle of the night, both of us shaking, me crying into his shoulder while he whispers that it isn't real, that I'm safe, that he's got me, until we can both fall back asleep. It has been our routine for years. It was manageable. It was survivable. Then, about a week ago, everything changed. Caleb was out of town for work, so I had fallen asleep on the living room couch with the television murmuring low in the background. My cat Cheshire was curled up beside my head on the throw pillow, purring softly. My dog Sirius, a sweet old golden retriever who never left my side when Caleb traveled, was sleeping on the floor right next to the sofa, close enough that I could hear him breathing. I woke up, or at least I thought I did, to the sound of buzzing near my ear. When I opened my eyes, I saw a large wasp hovering just above my face, circling closer and closer. I tried to swat it away and realized with a cold drop in my stomach that I couldn't move. Not my arms, not my legs, not even my mouth to scream. My eyes wouldn't even close. I was trapped, watching this thing hover inches from my skin, silently begging for it to stop. Then I noticed something. The wasp had been buzzing the entire time, but a moment ago, before I fully registered it, there had been no sound at all. That single detail, that flicker of wrongness, was enough to snap something loose in my brain. I recognized the hallucination for what it was, and the wasp vanished the instant I understood it wasn't real, but the buzzing didn't stop. I could suddenly move again, so I sat up, blinking hard, trying to shake off the last fog of sleep, certain now that I was fully awake and the nightmare was over. I was wrong. Halfway up, I froze completely, and this time it had nothing to do with sleep paralysis. There was a figure standing at the foot of the couch. The room was almost pitch black, lit only by the faint glow of a nightlight plugged in across the room. So I couldn't make out any features, only a shape, tall and impossibly still. I knew immediately that it couldn't be Caleb. He was hundreds of miles away. The figure did not move. It did not sway, did not shift its weight, did not breathe that I could hear. There was only that low, mechanical buzzing filling the silence, and somehow that was worse than if it had made any sound at all. I told myself this had to be another hallucination, one final trick of a sleep-deprived mind, and I decided I would face it head-on instead of letting the fear win. My voice came out smaller than I wanted it to, but I forced the words out anyway. Hello? The figure's head lifted, slowly, deliberately, and I understood with absolute certainty that it was looking directly into my eyes. The buzzing cut off instantly, like someone had thrown a switch. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard I thought it might crack them. And I felt every drop of warmth drain out of my face. I blinked, just once, and when my eyes opened again, the figure's face was an inch from mine. Cheshire screamed, an actual scream, not a meow, and bolted off the couch into the dark. I had no air left in my lungs to make a sound of my own. My eyes were locked onto its eyes, two pits of solid black that seemed to swallow the nightlight, the room, everything. In that instant, something settled over me that I can only describe as absolute despair, a suffocating weight that pressed every good memory I had ever had straight out of my chest, and replaced it with the certainty that nothing in this world was worth continuing to see. I have never wanted to simply stop existing more than I did in that moment. And it wasn't sadness, it was something colder, something that felt like it was being poured into me from outside my own mind. I could smell something sour and stale on what I can only assume was its breath, and I felt the weight of a chest rising and falling against mine, though I could not tell you how something without breath had breath at all. Its knees were pressed to the floor exactly where Sirius had been sleeping moments before, and somewhere in the back of my mind, buried under the terror, I registered that I should have been hearing him growl or shift uncomfortably. There was nothing. No sound from him at all. It never blinked. I don't think I did either, though eventually I must have, because that was the only way it ended. I would guess the whole thing lasted 10, maybe 15 seconds. It felt like the entire length of my life compressed into a single unbearable moment. Then it spoke. 3 words, in a voice so low and gravel rough, it didn't sound like it was using a throat at all. Time is short. I blinked again, an involuntary reflex this time, and when my eyes opened, it was gone. Sirius was dead. He was lying exactly where the figure, the one I have started calling my dark visitor, had been kneeling only seconds before. There wasn't a mark on him. No blood, no sign of struggle, nothing a vet could point to and explain. He was simply gone, as if whatever had been kneeling beside him had taken something out of him on its way out of this world. I cried until I couldn't breathe properly, curled up on that same couch until the sun came up, and then I drove him to be cremated with my hands still shaking on the steering wheel. Since that night, it has come back every single time I have woken up, whether it's the middle of the night or the middle of the afternoon, whether I'm napping on the couch or trying to sleep properly in bed. It is always the same. The stillness, the black eyes, the same 3 words delivered like a verdict rather than a warning. I am always paralyzed when it happens, unable to run, unable to fight, unable to do anything except sit there and take it. I haven't told Caleb any of this. What would I even say? He already worries about my insomnia, and he would only tell me to see a doctor, to get more sleep, to stop reading into hallucinations that aren't real. He wasn't there for the wasp. He wasn't there for Sirius. He would never believe a word of it, and there is nothing he could do from out of town regardless. So I have been carrying this alone. That is why I am at a hotel right now. Alone, without Caleb, without Cheshire, who I left with a neighbor because I refused to let anything else happen to an animal I love. I don't actually believe changing location will stop my visitor from finding me, but I had to try something, and at the very least, my cat is safe tonight. I keep circling the same questions until I can't think straight anymore. What does it mean that time is short? Is it my time it's talking about? Is it warning me about someone I love, someone who might be next the way Sirius was? Is this something I am supposed to stop, or is it simply telling me what is coming no matter what I do? And if it's only a warning, why does it feel less like a kindness and more like a countdown? I have tried to ask these questions every single time it has appeared. I open my mouth, I try to force sound out, and every single time my body refuses to obey me. I am completely at its mercy, and it has never once answered with anything except those same 3 words before vanishing the instant I blink. I can feel my eyes growing heavy as I write this. I have fought sleep for almost 60 hours straight, fueled by nothing but fear and convenience store coffee, and I don't think I can hold on much longer. I wanted to get an account of this written down, in case the next time it visits me is the last time I open my eyes at all. If I am still here after I wake up again, I promise I will come back and tell you exactly what happened. For now, I have to close my eyes, whether I want to or not. Good night, or good morning. I genuinely don't know which one it is anymore, and honestly, I'm not sure it matters. Please, just cross your fingers for me. I am a skeptic at heart, and I believe that most people, the smart ones anyways, are too. When I was a kid, I used to sit at the old dial-up family computer with my little brother and watch those real ghost encounters videos. They always scared the shit out of us, and after one particularly convincing alien encounter, my brother cried and screamed his little heart out before bed. I was a good big sister then. I sat up with him and explained all the ways it had been faked. A bit of makeup, some good lighting, maybe a toy model or 2. Those stupid little videos were works of art to us. Our focus shifted away from the fear and onto how they were created. My brother didn't get scared as often as he used to after that. I would have to search much harder to find the really scary stuff on long since blacklisted sites that showed grotesque abominations. Sometimes I'd even scare myself, but all I had to do was watch as he trembled in fear and I felt better. If I really went digging, I'd be able to find the fake ghost hunting videos we made on the old camcorder. I would be the host, walking around the basement with dimmed lights and faux fear dripping from my voice. My brother would be crouched in the corner, hitting the pipes with a stick or throwing junk across the room. We would eventually scare ourselves, convincing each other that one of those echoing knocks was the real deal. I would run, screaming out of the basement and shut the door behind me. My brother was younger, slower. He would scream and pound on the door to be let out as I laughed. I was a little shit, covering my own fear with the fear of my brother's. 2 years ago, I moved out of our family home and away from my brother. We drifted apart as we aged. He stayed as a recluse in his room most days, and I never saw him. I never called him, not even on his birthday like my mom asked. I'm not a good sister anymore. I realize that now. I saw him when I woke up a few hours ago to go to the bathroom. He was just a silhouette at the end of the hall, awkward and lanky in his teenage years. I didn't recognize him at first, and all I could do was run and lock myself in the bathroom. I never even screamed or gasped. Part of me was convinced I'd made it up. The light from outside had been cast on the shadows in just the right way, at just the right time, and my brain just filled in the gaps, imagining a familiar figure in the darkness. Then the pipes started groaning, like something was writhing around inside of them. I screamed then, backed up into the corner away from the door like some wounded little animal. There would be no escape in here. The one window wouldn't even fit my fist through. With my phone in hand, automatically grabbed from the nightstand earlier, I tried to call the police. When it didn't go through, I called my brother instead. I heard it ring from the other side of the door. Instantly, as though it had been some signal, he started pounding on the other side. He screamed in his now much older voice to be let in. He was so scared in the dark and alone. The voice was his, undeniably so, but despite the shrieks, there was no fear in his voice. It was almost as if he was reading from a script that wasn't made for him. Though fear made my joints freeze up and my skin prickle, I was angry at the apparent prank. My own brother had broken into my apartment in the early morning and waited for this moment. To what? Teach me a lesson? I yelled through the door, cursed at him to go away and stop being such a child. Then he stopped. No slamming or yelling, no footsteps, just the sound of something hitting the ground. The sound went on for a few long moments before I watched something appear at the bottom of the door. Sliding through the crack so slowly I barely noticed it at first. I moved closer, still shaky in the knees, to see what he was sliding under the door. I watched with my hands gripping the side of the sink for support and realized in horror that it was black tufts of hair sliding under the gap of the door. It was only when I saw the top of his forehead I realized what was happening. He's sliding under the door. God, I don't know how it's happening. I've been sitting here for hours. I'm blocked in and forced to watch as my brother, or whatever the fuck that is, slides inch by inch underneath the doorframe. His eyes, his nose, his gaping wide mouth. His torso is almost through now too. The skin ripples as it moves like some grotesque insect. He's crawling somehow, flat on his back and staring up at the ceiling. I'm too scared to move or even blink. I can't look away because with each inch he advances, he's closer to getting in, and I don't know what I'll do when that happens. My father is dying, and 3 weeks ago, sitting by a bonfire with our children running through the dark behind us, he told me a secret that I don't think he ever planned on taking to his grave. A secret about his childhood, about his mother, and about something that lived in the attic of the house he grew up in. I need to give you some background first. My grandmother was a singer in Vegas, back when Vegas still meant something. Back when the lounges were full of smoke and the men wore suits, and everyone who was anyone came out at night to be seen. She was, by every account, one of the best. Beautiful too, in that untouchable magazine cover kind of way. The kind of beauty that opened doors and closed mouths. But my father never talked about his childhood. Not once in my entire life, and we never asked. Because when your own childhood was good, when your own father gave you everything and asked for nothing back, you don't go digging for reasons to feel sorry for him. That changed a few months ago, when my father found out he has a brain tumor. Inoperable, the kind of diagnosis that makes a man start settling accounts with the people he loves before he runs out of time to do it. So there we were, drinking by the fire, and he just started talking, and once he started, he didn't stop until the whole story was out of him. I believe every word. I'm going to tell it to you the way he told it to me, in his own voice, because I don't think I could tell it any other way and do it justice. My mother was always beautiful, he said. Eyebrows perfectly plucked, skin like a child's, lipstick so red it never smeared, no matter what happened around her. But beauty doesn't make a good parent. Love does. And I don't think she ever loved anyone besides herself. My sister Tara and I weren't actually her children. Not by birth. Her own sister had us young and died shortly after from a hospital's malpractice. My mother took us in, not out of love, but because a grieving woman raising her dead sister's orphaned twins makes for a very sympathetic lawsuit. She sued the hospital, won a substantial settlement, and just like that, we were hers. For years after, bad luck seemed to follow her everywhere. Work dried up. She was getting older, and she hated watching it happen in the mirror every morning. Then, when I was around 9, everything changed overnight. We moved into this enormous 3-story house with a grand staircase and more rooms than any family could ever use. She landed a permanent singing spot at one of the biggest casinos in the city, and suddenly she was surrounded by parties, by famous faces, by the kind of glamour most people only read about. From the outside, it looked like the best thing that ever happened to us. From the inside, it was something else entirely. She never showed us real affection, only the performance of it, just enough to keep up appearances at her parties. When she looked at us, there was nothing behind her eyes. Not love, not hatred, not even resentment. Just emptiness. The kind of emptiness that made you feel invisible even when she was looking directly at you. We were confined to our rooms except for meals and baths, homeschooled by a live-in nanny, and there were entire sections of that house we were never allowed to enter. The worst of them was the attic. About a year after we moved in, the laughing started. A low, cruel kind of laughter. Nothing like anything I'd heard before, always beginning in the dead of night and lasting until nearly dawn. It never sounded far away. It always sounded like it was right against your ear, no matter which room you were in. I told my mother. She dismissed it. I told the nanny, and even though she heard it too, she sided with my mother because you don't cross the person who signs your paycheck. Eventually, you learn to live with almost anything. Then things started coming down from that attic. I was 10 or 11 the first time I actually saw it. I'd gotten up in the night to use the bathroom across the hall, and at the far end of that hallway stood the attic door. Always locked, always shut, except that night it was wide open, and something stood half inside the doorway and half out into the hall light. It was black, not dark, not shadowed, black. The kind of black that seems to eat light instead of reflect it. Its eyes were wide, too wide and too far apart, and there was nothing else on its face. No mouth, no nose. Just those eyes, watching me or watching through me, I couldn't tell which. And that laugh I knew so well came out of it anyway, despite having no mouth to make the sound with. It stood there for what felt like an eternity, before slipping back through the door, which clicked shut behind it. I told everyone. My mother, the nanny, my sister, even strangers at the parties. Nobody listened, so it kept happening. For years that thing terrorized me. Some nights it just stood in my open doorway, staring. Other nights it stood directly over my bed, while I was too frozen to move, running long, disgusting fingers that smelled like curdled milk across my face. You don't get used to that. You just learn to survive it. When I was 12, my mother's luck ran out again. The bills piled up. Then she discovered she was pregnant and lost her job entirely. I'd seen her cry when I was very small, but never since things had gotten good, and suddenly she was crying constantly. I overheard her talking to the nanny about getting an abortion. A few nights later, I watched her walk up into that attic, something I'd only ever seen her do once before, with a young woman she'd brought home from one of her parties. When she came back down, her whole face had changed, lighter somehow. The next morning she announced she decided to keep the baby after all. The bills got paid almost immediately. She stopped going out. The nanny handled everything, even the delivery, right there in the house. A baby girl. My mother told everyone at her parties that she'd given the baby up for adoption to a couple up north, but I knew better because I watched her carry that crying newborn up into the attic the very next night. I heard the crying, then screaming, then nothing at all. Then the laughter started again. My mother got an even better job at a nicer casino almost immediately after that, and everything went back to what passed for normal in our house. I hate to admit this, but part of me was relieved. I could sleep again. I could eat without my stomach in knots. For the first time in years, I felt something close to peace. And then it came back, worse than before. It didn't just stand there anymore. It started talking, with no mouth to talk through, saying things I have never repeated to another living soul and never will. Those white eyes stared while the words came from somewhere I couldn't locate, slurred and wrong. I was 14 and I wanted to die. Nobody was listening. Nobody cared. So, I started acting out, sneaking out at night, first just walking the neighborhood, then falling in with kids near the bars and diners who taught me how to drink and smoke, and worse. Around that same time, my mother's career started slipping again. The casino brought in a younger singer. Her age was starting to show no matter how hard she fought it, and she sank into a depression I'd never seen from her before. The last night we lived in that house, I was sneaking out the way I always did. When I heard crying down the hall, coming from my mother's room, it wasn't her voice. It was the nanny's. Then a thump, then silence. I cracked my door open just enough to watch my mother drag the nanny's unconscious body out of the room, down the hallway, and through the attic door, which shut behind them. I listened to the sound of a body being dragged up those stairs, thump by thump, and I already knew what was coming. But this time, there was no laughter, only my mother's voice, yelling, crying, arguing with something I couldn't hear the other side of. Frantic footsteps came rushing back down those attic stairs. I shut my door and dove into bed, pretending to sleep, as she peeked into my room for just a moment before disappearing back down the hallway at a dead run. Everything went quiet after that, quieter than it had ever been, and I lay there too afraid to move, wondering why there was no laughter at all. Then I smelled smoke. Everything after that happened fast. The hallway filled with flames. The attic door stood wide open, and that thing was standing in it, still black even against the firelight, still faceless except for those eyes. It let out a scream that didn't sound human, pointed one long finger directly at me, and I ran before I could find out whether it intended to follow. My mother's room was empty, her enormous canopy bed already engulfed. I woke my sister Tara, and we climbed down from the roofing outside her window since the stairwell was already an inferno. My mother was arrested that night, charged only with arson. Investigators assumed the 3 bodies found in the attic had simply died in the fire. It was a different era, and nobody imagined a woman capable of something like that, especially one so beautiful, so seemingly harmless. They released her. She was dead within a few months, wasted away by something no doctor back then could name, and I don't think any doctor today could either. Not really. Whatever kept her young and lucky all those years, it left with that creature, and it took the rest of her with it. I still wake up some nights expecting to see it standing over me. Those wide white eyes. That laugh coming from nowhere at all. I asked my father near the end of the story if he was afraid of dying. He looked at the fire for a long moment before he answered. "No," he said. "I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of what might be waiting for me on the other side."